everyone, we're Mimicker, here to introduce all kinds of knowledge, even the stuff we didn't know about.
Yeah, it's genuinely great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I was looking through our research for today's topic, and I stumbled across this news headline that, honestly, it made me do a complete double take.
Oh, yeah? Which one?
It was talking about adults, like grown men and women, using the, and I quote, iron fist of capitalism with absolutely bottomless budgets to build the ultimate spinning top.
Right. It's a phenomenal headline.
They are out there on the internet throwing down serious cash to completely crush the competition. And we aren't talking about hedge funds or tech startups trying to monopolize a new app. We are talking about Beyblade.
Yeah, and it perfectly captures the absurdity, but also, the reality of the situation right now.
It's wild.
Looking at the backdrop we have set up for the studio today, this sort of neon-lit high-tech stadium crossed with, like, a literal physics laboratory, you can see we are far beyond the realm of simple playground games here.
Oh, absolutely.
We are looking at a masterclass in cross-generational product evolution.
And to you listening, I really have to ask, have you ever felt that sudden, undeniable urge to buy back a little piece of your childhood?
Oh, the nostalgia hit.
Exactly. You go online, you buy that old toy you loved, but when it actually arrives, you realize the toy you remember has evolved into this highly competitive, meticulously engineered marvel.
It's a shock to the system for a lot of people.
Right. So the mission of this deep dive today is tracking how a plastic top from the late 90s mutated into this global micro-sport. We're talking esports style tournaments, international flights, and rigorous physics.
Yeah. And to understand why adults are spending these limitless budgets today, we really have to look at the genius way this obsession was engineered from the very beginning, like back in 1999.
Right, because it didn't just come out of nowhere.
Exactly. The core idea didn't just fall out of the sky. The original concept, which was co-developed by the Japanese toy giant Takara, now Takara Tomy and Hasbro in the U.S., was deeply rooted in Beyblade.
Beyblade. Those are the traditional Japanese tops, right?
Yeah.
Made of cast iron or wood.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen videos of these. They look incredibly difficult to use.
Oh, they are notoriously difficult. If you have ever tried to spin a traditional Beyblade or even just the classic Western wooden top with a string, you know it takes a massive amount of fine motor control.
You have to wrap it, like, perfectly.
Right. The skill barrier is incredibly steep. You have to wrap the cord perfectly tight, hold it with a very specific grip, throw it at the exact right angle, and then pull back with precise timing.
Which, for a 7-year-old, is basically impossible.
Exactly. Most kids just get frustrated and give up.
Yeah.
So Takara's breakthrough innovation was completely mechanical. They standardized the launch mechanism by creating the launcher and the winder.
Oh, you mean the ripcord?
Yes, that plastic ripcord.
You just thread it into the plastic gear, pull it as hard as you can, and boom, massive rotational speed.
Anyone can do it.
It instantly democratizes the playground. You don't need to spend 3 weeks practicing how to throw a piece of wood. You just pull a plastic strip and suddenly you're generating, what, thousands of RPMs?
Yeah, thousands. And that mechanical equalizer was step one. But the physical toy was only half the equation. The other half was what we can call the Pokemon effect.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, Takara brought in the video game developer Hudson early on to help integrate role-playing game elements directly into the physical tops.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because they basically took a centuries-old playground game and injected it with the DNA of a video game avatar.
That is the perfect way to look at it, yeah. Hudson helped introduce these interchangeable bit chips that sat right on the top center of the toy.
I remember those. They had like little stickers on them.
Right. They featured intricate drawings of sacred beasts, dragons, tigers, griffins.
So it wasn't just a piece of plastic anymore. It had an identity, like a soul.
Exactly. And then, in 2002, the anime hit the global market.
I remember this vividly. It featured this intense red versus blue style rivalry between the loud, passionate main character, Tyson, I think his name was.
Yes, Tyson.
And his cold, calculating rival, Kai. They tied an epic, lore-heavy narrative directly to this physical object you could hold in your hand.
It was a brilliant marketing move.
But let me push back on this for a second, because did the anime actually carry the toy?
What do you mean?
Like, was this just a piece of cheap plastic that sold well because kids liked watching Tyson yell on TV? Or was the toy actually revolutionary on its own? Because, I mean, a lot of toys from the 90s had cartoons, and most of them are sitting in landfills today.
That's a really fair question. The synthesis of our sources suggests it wasn't one carrying the other. It was the ultimate realization of the media mix strategy.
Media mix.
Yeah. The toy provided a tactile, highly satisfying physical experience. You know, the aggressive zipping sound of the ripcord, the clatter of the collisions in the plastic bowl.
Oh, yeah, that sound is permanently burned into my brain.
Right. But the media provided the emotional investment. The story made you care about why the tops were colliding. If the toy was bad, the anime wouldn't save it. And if the anime wasn't compelling, the toy would have just been a passing fad.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I have a distinct memory of launching one of these in 2002 and taking a solid chunk out of my mom's glass coffee table.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I was grounded for a week. But these things were dense, and they flew everywhere. But, you know, emotional investment and plastic collisions aren't enough to sustain a 25-year empire.
No, definitely not.
Kids grow up, they figure out the tricks. So to prevent the game from going stale, the engineering had to undergo these violent, brilliant evolutions.
Violent is absolutely the correct term for the engineering trajectory here. I mean, over the last 25 years, we have seen 4 distinct generations of design.
4 generations.
Yeah, and the fascinating part is that each generation was engineered specifically to solve a gameplay problem created by the generation before it.
Okay, so if Generation 1 was just plastic grinding against plastic until everyone got bored, how did the engineers solve that?
Well, let's dive into Generation 1 first. The basic era, from 1999 to 2008. They established that modular 3-part design.
Right, the bit chip, the weight disk, and the blade base.
Exactly. But they tried some wild physics experiments here to keep kids interested.
They threw everything at the wall, didn't they?
Oh, completely. They introduced engine gears, which were literally miniature internal wind-up mechanisms.
Wait, like a clockwork inside the top.
Yeah. The idea was that in the middle of a battle, when the top started slowing down, this internal gear would release extra kinetic energy and give it a second wind.
That is so cool.
They even experimented with magnacores, putting heavy magnets inside the tops in the arenas to alter the movement trajectories based on magnetic polarity.
Which sounds awesome in theory, but it had a fatal flaw, right?
Right.
It was all primarily plastic. The parts wore down super quickly from friction, and the matches usually devolved into these really tedious stamina drain battles.
Yeah, 2 tops just spinning slowly, grazing each other for 3 minutes until one finally falls over.
It's not exactly thrilling esports material.
No, not at all. Which brings us to Generation 2 in 2008, the metal fight era.
Metal fight sounds intense.
It was. They completely overhauled the materials to fix that exact problem of the boring stamina battles. The tops switched to high-density metal with a much more complex 4-part structure.
Metal instead of plastic. That changes everything.
Entirely. By moving to metal, they drastically increased the overall mass and, crucially, the moment of inertia.
Okay, hold on. Moment of inertia. Break that down for the listener.
Sure. Think of a figure skater spinning on the ice.
Okay.
If they hold their arms out wide, they spin slower, but they are incredibly stable. If they pull their arms in tight, they spin much faster.
Right. The classic physics example.
Exactly. So Gen 2 toys push the heavy metal weight to the very outer edge of the toy, maximizing that moment of inertia. Meaning once it started spinning, it became a tiny, incredibly stable, unstoppable buzzsaw.
And this is where the electronic battle recorder comes in. Which, by the way, blew my mind when I read about it.
It's wild, isn't it?
Wait, hold on. Electronic recorders. In 2008, how does a tiny piece of metal track digital data while smashing into a wall at 30 miles an hour?
I know, it sounds like science fiction for a children's toy.
Okay.
But they utilized early, durable microsensor technology inside a specialized accessory you attach to your launcher.
So the sensor wasn't in the top itself?
No, it was in the launcher. It registered your launch strength and your RPMs, allowing players to digitally track their physical performance.
That is way ahead of its time.
It really was. And because of the metal, the matches stopped being quiet stamina battles and became visually destructive, sparking metal-on-metal wars.
Sparks flying everywhere. Kids absolutely love that.
Of course they did.
But eventually, even metal on metal gets predictable. Which brings us to Generation 3 in 2015, the burst system.
Yes.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because they did something that sounds completely insane to me.
Oh, it sounded insane to everyone.
They replaced the screws holding the top together with a spring mechanism. The goal was that upon a heavy impact, the top would literally explode into pieces.
Yep.
Now, wait a second. Isn't intentionally designing a toy to break apart entirely counterintuitive to good manufacturing? Like, my parents would have been furious.
If you are looking at it purely as a durable good, yes, absolutely. It seems like a massive flaw.
Right.
But as a piece of game design, it is absolute brilliance. The Metal Fight era was intense, but it lacked a definitive theatrical climax.
Just eventually slowing down or getting knocked out.
Exactly. By designing the tops to burst, they created a visceral KO moment. And the physics behind it is where the real aha moment lies.
Right, because why doesn't it just explode the second you launch it? If it's held together by springs, shouldn't the sheer force of the launch rip it apart?
You'd think so, but no. It's centrifugal force.
Centrifugal force.
Yeah. When you pull that ripcord and the top is spinning at maximum velocity, the centrifugal force pushes the internal mechanisms outward, which locks the spring in place.
Wait, so it's actually stronger when it's spinning faster?
Exactly. The top is most solid when it's spinning at its fastest. But as it takes hits and friction slows it down, that outward force weakens.
And the spring tension starts to take over.
Ongo.
Oh, wow. So a heavy hit at the very end of a match when it's sort of wobbling is much more likely to shatter it than a hit at the beginning.
Yes. That is brilliant, isn't it? It completely shifted the meta of the game. Instead of building a heavy top for passive defense, players were incentivized to build aggressive, high-risk attack configurations to trigger that explosion.
It must have vastly improved the spectator experience, too, because matches could end in a split-second shower of plastic parts.
Exactly. High risk, high reward.
And that brings us to Generation 4, which started in 2023 and is basically dominating the scene today. Beyblade X.
The ultimate culmination of 25 years of trial and error.
It sounds like it.
It truly is the apex of their engineering. It brings back the heavy metal contacts of Gen 2. It keeps that satisfying burst mechanism from Gen 3.
Best of both worlds.
Right. But it adds something entirely revolutionary to the arena itself. The Xtreme dash rail.
Okay, the dash rail. Because the bottom of the spinning top has tiny teeth, or gears, molded into the plastic, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the outer edge of the arena has a matching track of gears. Think of a rack and pinion steering system in a sports car. Or, actually, think of a roller coaster catching the chain lift.
Oh, okay.
When the spinning top is pushed to the outer edge of the stadium, its gears physically lock into the rail.
And because it's already spinning at thousands of RPMs, when those gears catch to the rail, it acts like a slingshot.
Exactly. It rockets the top across the arena at blinding, almost uncatchable speeds.
That is terrifying.
It turns a static spin battle into a dynamic, ultra-high-speed collision. The kinetic energy involved is staggering. We're talking about objects moving fast enough that high-speed cameras are sometimes needed to see exactly what happened upon impact.
Wow. But, because the engineering became so explosive and complex, the rules of the game had to evolve to match it.
They had to.
And this is where, for me at least, Beyblade officially stops being a toy and becomes a highly regulated microsport. Because if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, but it's still just spinning tops, imagine trying to play rock, paper, scissors where your rock can physically shatter if you calculate the math wrong.
Right.
You aren't just letting it rip and hoping for the best anymore.
Not at all. The scoring system is mathematically weighted to reward strategy and punish blind luck. In modern tournaments, you need 4 points to win, and sometimes up to 7 in the finals.
Let's break down the points, because it's not just last one spinning wins anymore.
No, not anymore.
If you win by simply outlasting the other person, an outspin or survivor finish, that is only worth 1 point.
Right. It is the lowest value reward because it takes the least amount of active engagement.
Makes sense.
But if you hit your opponent out of the main arena into an over zone like a physical knockout, that is worth 2 points.
Okay.
If you trigger the Gen 3 mechanic and cause a burst finish, exploding the opponent into pieces, that is also 2 points.
And here is the genius part of the rules. Burst priority.
Oh, yes.
Let's say we are playing. I hit your top so hard it flies completely out of the arena. I should get 2 points, right?
Calmly, yes.
But the recoil from my attack is so massive that my own top bursts into pieces in the center of the ring. Under tournament rules, you actually get the 2 points.
Yep. The Burke takes priority over the ring out.
It punishes me for building something reckless.
Exactly. It forces players to balance their attack power with their structural integrity. You cannot just build a glass cannon. And then there is the Gen 4 exclusive, the extreme finish.
Oh, right, using the rail?
Yes. If you use that gear rail we talked about to slingshot your top and smash your opponent perfectly into the center pocket trap, you get 3 points all at once.
A 3-point swing, you could be losing 3-0, land an extreme finish, and instantly tie the game.
The crowd goes absolutely wild for that. It maximizes the unpredictability and the hype of the sport. But there is another layer to the rules that truly elevates it to an esports level.
Which is?
The 3-on-3 deck format.
So, what does this all mean? To me, it sounds like playing a competitive card game like Hearthstone or Magic, The Gathering, but you are executing your deck with a PhD in physics.
The comparison is remarkably apt, honestly. In high-level tournaments, you cannot just bring your one favorite, most powerful top.
Right.
The game operates on a loose rock, paper, scissors mechanic. Attack types generally beat stamina types. Stamina beats defense. Defense beats attack.
So to eliminate the luck of just randomly having the advantage in a one-off match, the rules force you to build a deck of 3 totally unique tops.
Exactly. You cannot reuse the same blades, the same metal weights, or the same plastic tips across your 3 choices.
And then you blind pick the order they will battle in. But I have to challenge this, with all the physics and the explosive rails, is there really a macro strategy here, or is it still mostly luck of the draw? I mean, it's spinning tops.
The luck factor is actually minimized dramatically by the math and psychology involved. Oh, absolutely. High-level players scout their opponents during the preliminary rounds. They note their habits and preferred parts. When you are building your deck, you are actively calculating weight distributions and friction coefficients.
Wow, really?
Yeah. For example, if you know your opponent relies on a heavy, rubber-tipped attack top that grips the stadium floor for speed, you might choose a smooth, free-spinning spherical tip that easily deflects heavy hits.
Oh, I see.
You are predicting your opponent's lineup and choosing a battle order specifically to neutralize their strongest components. You are managing a macro strategy across 3 potential rounds.
That is incredibly deep. And the pipeline for these players to compete is incredibly structured too, right? They have what they call the G-tier system.
Yes, the progression from amateur to pro is heavily formalized. G4 tournaments are your grassroots events.
The local stuff.
Right. They are casual weekend meetups at local hobby shops where players win exclusive metal chip cores and just hang out. It builds the local community.
But then you graduate to G3 and G2.
Yeah, and these are massive mall events. They have professional MCs screaming into microphones. We are talking hundreds of competitors.
And some of these are even sponsored by outside corporations, not just the toy company, which is crazy to me.
Well, it proves the commercial viability of the sport.
Definitely.
And at the very top, you have G1, the international stage.
Right. These are fully funded flights to places like Paris or Korea, where you represent your country in the World Championships, standing in a stadium with thousands of cheering fans.
Which perfectly explains the demographic shift we opened the deep dive with.
With rules this complex and gameplay this intense, it is no wonder adults are completely dominating the modern scene.
Exactly. Sociologists often refer to this as the Lego effect.
The Lego effect.
Yeah. The millennials and Gen Z kids who played Generation 1 and Generation 2 back in the late 90s and 2000s are now in their late 20s and 30s.
And they have significant disposable income.
Exactly. They aren't asking their parents for allowance anymore. They are dropping hundreds of dollars on imported parts.
Right, and Takara Tomy leaned directly into this. In their marketing for Generation 4, they prominently feature adults playing the game in slick, dimly lit arcades.
They intentionally removed the social stigma of a grown adult playing with a toy. They rebranded it as a legitimate hobby sport, akin to darts or billiards.
And it also creates this amazing generational bonding. You have parents who grew up on this stuff using the physical tops to teach their own kids real-world physics.
It's a great educational tool.
It is. They are explaining aerodynamics, why a jagged edge creates drag, or how gear ratios on the extreme dash rail work. It is completely physical, tactile bonding activity, entirely devoid of screens.
And from a business perspective, it creates a massive dual audience economy.
Yeah.
You have the parents buying the starter sets for the kids, but then secretly buying high-end imported competitive parts for themselves to use at the weekend G4 tournaments.
That is so true. But here's the craziest part. Looking at the data we collect from online platforms, the media landscape driving this economy has completely shifted. Well, the anime used to be the main driver, right? But now YouTube and TikTok have completely taken over as the primary marketing tools.
Yeah. The engagement numbers on user-generated content are staggering. It has cultivated a deeply analytical online community.
We are talking about fans watching 204-minute deep dives into the lore of the old toys. 204 minutes.
People are dedicated.
They really are. There are meta-analysis videos breaking down competitive deck strategies with 7.5 million views. And my absolute favorite part of the research, there are entire forums dedicated to debating the minute weight differences of mid-fakes.
Ah, yes, the mid-fakes, the high-end knockoffs.
Right. Because in a tournament where a fraction of a gram changes your friction coefficient and costs you a match, knowing how to spot a mid-fake is vital.
Absolutely vital.
People will post microscopic photos of the production stamps just to prove their metal wheel was minted in the correct factory. It's intense. But let me ask you a poignant question. Looking at all this data, all this money being spent, and all this intense physics analysis, is this just adults desperately trying to buy back their lost childhoods, or is the game actually legitimately better now?
What's fascinating here is that it is a perfect storm of both. You cannot discount the emotional capital of nostalgia.
No, definitely not.
It gets the adults in the door. But nostalgia alone cannot sustain a thriving, multi-million view competitive scene for adults. The engineering, the extreme dash rails, the centrifugal burst mechanics, the mathematical scoring system, it creates a genuinely rigorous, data-driven esports ecosystem.
It's an actual game now.
Right. It satisfies the analytical, problem-solving adult brain just as much as the spinning plastic satisfies the inner child.
It really is a microsport. It takes the physical aerodynamic engineering of motorsport, the strategic deck building of a card game, and the lightning-fast reflexes of a fighting game, and condenses it into an arena the size of a pizza box.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this raises an important question. As the boundary between traditional playground toys and highly regulated, digitally tracked esports continues to vanish, could the next Olympic-level, globally televised sport be sitting completely unnoticed in a toy aisle right now?
Thanks for tuning into this episode. If you enjoyed our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and turn on the notification bell. See you guys.